Okay everyone, so we are going to start with a lovely core warm-up from all down our spine, because core, I just need to, everyone thinks about the stomach, but it's all about the back as well. So we need to work both of them, warm them both up, and we're going to do classic class 1, the worship. So stand feet hip width apart. You need a bit of ceiling space. So soften the knees, sweep the arms up and then stretch up. And as you stretch up, see if you can press your hips forward a little, but hold the abs in. And then on an exhale, we're going to reach our arms forward, pull up the belly, and then swing the arms behind and pin them back, and then really crunch up that stomach and tuck the chin. Okay, and then we're going to stand up on the in-breath, reach tall, push the hips forward. On an exhale, start really crunching the abs in, sweep the hands behind, pin those shoulders together, really hold that abs in, sweep the arms up, press forward. Exhale, crunch, swing the arms behind, pin shoulders together. Breathe in, reach up. Exhale and crunch. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Really squeeze it in hard. One more time. Reach tall, press hips forward. On the exhale, crunch the stomach in. Bring those hands behind, sitting deep, really crunch it up. And exhale, stand, have a little loosen and a swing. Just get all the spine nice and loose. Right, so the next one we're going to do is we're going to link hands. And as we inhale, we're going to really crunch forward. Oh, that's lovely. And then exhale. Stand and pin the hands back. So it's similar, but with linked fingers. Crunch, push those hands forward. Get a nice stretch over the shoulders. Tuck the chin. Exhale. Oh, lovely. Inhale, crunch. Exhale. And inhale, crunch. And exhale. And then just slowly bring those arms. Oh, that feels nice. Another few shoulder rolls. Just a few figure of 8s just to loosen the lower back. So my friends, because we're working on our core, we're going to work on our stomach breathing. So we're going to really wake up this part of the body. So begin with your hands just under your belly button in the lower abs, holding it in. And what we're going to do is, contrary to what feels natural, as we breathe in, we're going to swell the stomach. So your hands really fill as your stomach balloons. That's the inhale. So that when you exhale, you pull in at the belly button and your stomach deflates. So breathe in, swell the belly. Exhale, pull the belly button in. Breathe it all out, deflate like a balloon, so you're really, really going inward. Breathe in, draw the air down into the belly, swell it out. Exhale, really crunch it in. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Breathe in, swell. Exhale, crunching it in. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Really good way of toning and warming up the stomach. Breathe in, swell. Exhale, crunch it in as you squash all the air out. Breathe in, swell. Exhale. Really crunch it in, crunch it in, crunch it in. One more time. Breathe in and swell. Exhale, crunch, 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 crunch. Really squeezing all the air out so you become quite deflated. If only it could remain like this. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Good. So we're going to apply that principle in a moment. We're going to now just warm up our lower spine with some pelvic tilts. So everyone sit deep, nice and soft into the heels, a little pelvic tuck already to begin. And we're going to use that same breath that we've just done, but we're going to work our pelvis by tilting our pelvis up. So breathe in, and then on the exhale, as you squash the air out, pull the belly in and at the same time tilt up the pelvis. Breathe in, release the pelvis. On your exhale, crunch the belly in, really squeeze it in strongly and allow that pelvis to tilt up. Breathe in, release. Exhale, really pull the belly button in as the pelvis tilts up. Breathe in, release. Exhale, crunch and tilt it up. Tilt, 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 tilt. Breathe in, release. So when you breathe in, try not to allow the back to tilt. On the breath in, you're just letting your spine come back to neutral. So if I do it sideways, so it will be breathe in. On the exhale, crunch, 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 and then start really tucking up that pelvis. Really tilt it up. Breathe in, that's the release. Exhale, crunch it in. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Breathe in, release. Exhale, squeeze the air out. Tuck that pelvis up. Breathe in, release. Exhale, crunch, 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 crunch. Really squeezing it in, pulling up that pelvis. And release and go back to normal. Shake the legs out. Very nice, very nice. Now there's one factor to add to this, which is our pelvic floor. So draw up every muscle that you can summons, and it's actually quite easy when you're drawing in the belly to be able to locate that pelvic floor and pull it up, and that is really, really, really going to tuck up that pelvis. So here we go with added pelvic floor power. So breathe in. On your exhale, start tucking and really pull the pelvic floor up at the same time. Pull the belly in and the pelvic floor, squeeze, crush. And then breathe in, neutral. Exhale, pull the belly and the pelvic floor, really, 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 really squeeze, crunch, 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 crunch. And breathe in. Exhale, crunch, pull up everything you've got, squeeze, 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 really tuck that pelvis. And release. Exhale, squeeze the air out, pull up that pelvic floor, crush the stomach in, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And breathe in. Exhale, pull up and crush. Breathe in. Exhale, pull it all up and crush, squeeze, 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 squeeze. Hold yourself empty. And breathe in. Careful of that back. If you worry about the spine tilting down too much, you can always do it against a wall or a hard surface so that it will literally stop your pelvis from tilting too much, because it's fine to crunch up, but it's the release not allowing that to happen. So trying to keep that tailbone always pointing downwards. So 2 more times just to really focus on keeping that posture. So here we go, breathe in. Exhale, pull up the pelvic floor, crunch everything in, tuck up that pelvis. Inhale. Exhale, crush it all in. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Very slight, careful release. Breathe in, crunch, 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 crunch. and release. Well done, everyone. Well done. You should be feeling nice and warmed up in this area. Do another few figure of eights just to loosen that out. So we're also going to do a little bit of stretching in our spine, and we're going to move it into, we're literally going to work our back and then work our front by balance. So if you have a wall handy or something to lean on, you might need it. You might be fine just doing one-legged. So we're going to do a variation of dancer pose. As I said, if you wanted to have a bit of support, do sort of have your fingertip on something. So starting tailbone tuck, we're just going to raise one leg behind and then start to bend it and then reach your hand towards your foot. We don't have to hold it. It's just a matter of pushing up with your glutes and your thigh bone, pushing up. So we're really working our back as we pin our arms back to meet that foot. Pull the abs in nice and strong. So you might have one hand against the wall for support, which is fine, or you might be daredevil and go freestyle. But really, it's a really good back strengthener. Okay. And then release that down. And what we're going to do, that same leg, that same side, we're now going to bring it up, bent knee, and really crunch your abs into staff pose. Staff pose, you can have an extended leg, but it doesn't really matter. So you're using your stomach as you bring your knee in, you're going to crunch in that belly. Okay, and again, you can hold on to the wall for support. Okay, but really pull those abs in. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to transition, same leg, we're going to transition from one and going to try and transition up into the other. So, shift your weight into the support leg, put your foot behind, take a little step behind. Now raise that leg, you can bend the knee, flex the foot, and then pin those shoulders to reach towards the foot. Excellent, really pulling those abs. Now, if you can, without touching to the floor, bring that leg up and then use those abs to crunch and raise that knee front. Very nice work. And release. Shake the support leg out and we'll do the other side. So, my friends, here we go. Starting with the variation of dancer pose. So just step one foot behind you as you shift your weight into that front leg. Take the foot off the floor, bend the knee, pin those shoulders behind and reach, reach, reach towards that back foot as you push your chest up, really pulling those abs in, reaching towards that back foot. Good. What perfect control, everybody. And just release that down, shake things out. We'll then do the staff pose only on this other leg. So shift your weight into your support leg, tailbone tuck, and we're really going to squeeze those abs in. So as you raise that knee, really squash those stomach muscles in, really crunch them in. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Crunch, 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 crunch. Crunch, 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 crunch. Lovely, lovely control, everyone. And release. Shake it out, and now we'll do the transition one through to the other. Are you ready, my friends? It's absolutely fine to be wobbly, and it's fine to have support. So one foot behind, leg, all the weight in that front leg. Roll those shoulders back, squeeze the belly in, raise that back leg as you reach towards your fingertips, towards your heel, as your chest goes upwards, pulling those abs in, and then gently bring that knee forward, and then really pull those stomach muscles in. Crunch, 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 crunch. Crunch, crunch, crunch. and down. Lovely. Figure of 8. Just ease that spine. And we'll just do a nice forward fold, just to release the back. So wide feet, tuck the chin, slide down, one by one by one. Hold the elbows for ragdoll if you like. And we'll take a few breaths down here. Then crunch those stomachs in, tuck that chin, roll it gently up. Up, 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 up. Lovely, 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 lovely. Shake it all out. So, my friends, we are now ready for some belly dance drills. That was warming up. We're now ready. So the first one we're going to do, let's start with our upper abs and our upper back. So in the belly dancer stance, nice wide stance, tailbone tuck. Are you ready? I find hands on the front of my hips brings my shoulders into sort of neutral, and it also helps me give it a bit of a push up. So here we go. We've got a slight tailbone tuck, hands on the front hips, and just raise that chest as high as you can. So you're getting good stretch down here. Raise that up higher. The ribs are going as high as you can. That's lovely. Now try not to let the shoulders come back. Keep those shoulders neutral as you can. And when your chest is up, you'll start getting an arch. So whilst it's up, start drawing that pelvis back into line as well. Really pushing up, press against those hips to get a good lift, and try and breathe. Lovely, 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 lovely. And now draw that belly button in strongly as you can to pull the chest down. Press it up, raise it up as high as you can get it, and crunch it in. Pushing it up high and crunch it in. Pushing it up high and really crunching it in. Now we're going to go forward with the chest. So we've been going upwards, we're now going to push forward. So our hips stay behind, and it's like we're hovering. You're trying to reach something and there's like a nettle or something and you're like, oh, I don't want to get there. So your ribs are high, but you're moving it forward, okay? And we use those same stomach muscles to pull it back. So we're going to push the chest upwards first, then we're going, I just have to remind myself, get into that soft seated, soft knees, tailbone tuck, crunch it in, push it forward, crunch it back in, pushing it up, crunch it back down, push it forward, crunch it back in. So the hips aren't moving, it's only the rib cage which is sliding. So raise, crunch, push forward and crunch. Raise and crunch, push forward and crunch. Up and crunch and forward and crunch and up, crunch, forward, crunch, up, crunch, forward, crunch, up, crunch, forward and crunch, and shake it all out. That is so good for strengthening all the muscles, support muscles around your shoulder girdle. Excellent work. Give it all a lovely shake. Nice work, nice work. So we're now going to do lower half. So let's work. This is, although it's a belly dance basic move, the slides, they're actually also just a really good toning and stretch exercise. So to slide, a hip slide, it's when your hips are going to travel on the same level, and we just have your arms wide, it'll help. Just shift your hips over to one side, glide across, and then push them to the other. glide across to one side and to the other. And it's a really nice stretch down here as well. So this is your slides. Now to get a good slide, you have to really draw that belly in. So draw it in as it comes across, draw it in. So we're just smoothly moving our hips side to side. And as I said, it's a lovely stretch down here. You're trying to keep that torso absolutely neutral. So it's only the waist that's working here. So the chest, you try and keep in one place and the hips are moving. And again, if you keep your rib cage really high, that will help the separation, the isolations. So draw that belly in and just gently press those hips side to side, trying to make a nice smooth line one side and the other. Lovely. Now we're going to speed that up a little bit. So side to side to side to side. Keep those belly button in, the chest lifted as much as you can. Side to side to side to side, side to side to side to side. Still breathing, everybody. Now check posture. Check that that torso is not leaning. That is absolutely still. You can hold it there and make sure it's just the hips that are moving. Okay, side to 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 side, 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 side. It's actually such a lovely stretch all the way down here, down into the love handles. So now we're going to separate the top half. So hands on hip bones, rib cage lifted, and we're just going to slide the chest one side, slide to the other. Sliding it towards the elbow, so no hip movement whatsoever. Pull those abs in tight, lift that rib cage as high as you can. And it doesn't matter if it's really quite a small move, it's the technique which is the most important. So it's like you're really straining to get your chest as high as you can. Really get it as high as possible, and it's much easier then to isolate just that chest move. And again, hands on hips I find is very useful. I find, again, it keeps those shoulders neutral. Good. Keeping that lift all the time, there's no chance to relax. Try not to get too rigid in the lower half. So still try and keep softness in the knees, that tailbone tuck. With a tailbone tuck, it's much easier to continue those isolations. Lifted rib cage, but tailbone tuck, tight round here. Slide, 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 slide. Shake it all around. Lovely. Okay. So our next drill, we're going to do our pelvis area, so all in the lower back. And this is the classic ummi, although belly sizes have it another name, which I can't repeat. And it is sitting deep. Get as deep as you can. Tailbone tuck. We're just going to push one hip up, tuck the pelvis, other hip up, and then just sit with a neutral spine. So squeeze one hip up, pelvic tuck, push the other hip up, and then sit. So you need, the softer your knees, the more range of movement that you're going to have. So sort of sitting quite square, so that squeeze hip up, tuck, squeeze hip up, and sit, squeeze it up, tuck, squeeze it up, sit, up, crunch it all up, push that hip up and sit, up, crunch, up and sit. Okay, here we go. Smooth that off. Up, crunch, up and sit. I'll do it from the side so you see that the spine always stays neutral. So it's up, tuck, up and sit, up, tuck, up and sit, up, tuck, up and sit. And of course we have to change direction, so starting on the other side, here we go, up, tuck, up and sit, 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 and then smooth it off if you can, up, tuck, up and sit. Again, try not to tilt in the spine, keeping that neutral spine. So I'm changing direction just so you can see that the spine stays neutral. The pelvis only ever tips upwards or straight up to the side. It never tilts behind. You always keep that tucked. Okay, and you really start to feel this one in your thighs. Okay, lovely, and shake those legs out. Well done, everyone. So when we get to do the choreography, we're just going to be so honed and toned. So now we're going to do belly crunching, which is just the simple belly pops, pulling that belly button in, pulling it in, pulling it in. So we'll just warm our belly button up first. So as ever, my friends, nice neutral spine, slight pelvic tuck. Here we go, pulling in that belly button and crunch, 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 and a few more. Just using just those middle ab muscles. Squeeze in, 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 and then a bit faster, in, 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 in. Really slosh around my breakfast this morning. In, 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 in. So just showing from the side that you don't allow the pelvis to tilt. You always keep that tuck, and it's in, 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 in. Still breathing, that's the trick. Okay, my friends. If you do it with a big smile, every push of air will come out through your teeth so you can still breathe. Lovely. Right, so that was just a warm-up, because what we're going to do is belly crunch layer, as in add it to another move. And these will really, by adding this crunching inwards, it will really help with your quality of some of the moves. First one we're going to add it to is a standard Egyptian circle, so wide stance, a little bit of a tailbone tuck. So that's just swooping our hips around nice and smoothly, neutral spine. Lovely. Okay, so this is our hip circle. Now we're going to add our stomach. So we want a relaxed stomach as our hips press forward, but then we're going to start really crunching the stomach in to pull those hips behind. So it's release, crunch it in. So as it's coming over the back, you really squeeze those abs in. And release, crunch, release and crunch, release, crunch, 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 release. Really squeeze it in, release and crunch, release and crunch, release and crunch. Change direction, release, crunch it in, release. Keep those knees really soft so that you can keep your pelvis in a nice neutral position. Crunch, release, crunch, release. Crunch, 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 release and crunch and release. Well done, everyone. Give it a rub. Okay, so the next one we're going to add the belly crunch to is with a twist. So with the heel raised, it's just a normal inward twist, inward twist, inward twist, which in any case is a lovely core worker because it's so good for all the waist and the lower back. But we're going to add a belly crunch. And what we're going to do, we're going to add the crunch as the hip comes inwards. So it's a crunch, 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 so everything's all tight, and then release. Crunch it all in really, 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 really tight. Release. Crunch it in really tight. Release. Crunch it in and release. Crunch it in. Release. Crunch, 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 crunch. Release. Crunch. Hope everyone's breathing. Release and crunch. Release. Okay, my friends, we're going to speed that up a little bit, but you're still expected to breathe. So here we go. Crunch, release. Crunch, release. So you're just pulling that belly button in each time. Crunch the belly in. Belly button in. Belly button in. Belly button in. Shake the legs out and we'll do the other side. So here we go. Heel raised. Just warm up that hip with a few little twists. Okay. And now. Crunch it in as it twists in and release. Crunch, crunch, crunch really tight. Release. Crunch it in tight. Release. Crunch it in tight. Release. Crunch and release. Crunch, release. Squeeze it in. Squeeze it in. Squeeze it in. And speeding it up. Are you ready, my friends? And crunch, 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 crunch. Really squeeze it in and shake. Woo! Nice. So you thought that was it, didn't you? No, we've got one more, and that is doing a stationary camel, because that is the time you most want to use your ab muscles. So we're just going to do it on the spot, not traveling. So for a stationary camel, it's just about the hips. So before we add the stomach, have 1 foot forward and then just move your weight into that front leg and then move it into the back leg. Push your hips forward and then come back. So you're just rocking your weight forward and back over the front leg to the back leg. Okay? So you're just getting a very slight sway as you press forward and back. You're just shifting the weight forward and back, forward and back. Now we're going to add the stomach. So again, neutral forward, pull the hips back, squeeze that stomach in as much as you can. Release the stomach, crunching it in. Release the stomach, crunching it in. Release, crunch. Release, crunch. Release, crunch. Release and crunch. Release, crunch. Release, crunch. One more time on this side. Release and crunch. Okay, lovely, lovely. So we'll do the other leg. So 1 foot forward, other foot behind. Just begin by shifting the weight forward and back. Forward and back, just rocking. Allow your hips to be relaxed, more of a kind of little sway that you get. Moving it forward and back, forward and back. Now let's add the stomach. Forward, crunch it really strongly. Press forward, crunch it really strongly. Forward and crunch. So you're really using your stomach to pull those hips back. And crunch. Forward and crunch. Forward and crunch. Forward, crunch. Forward and crunch. Forward and crunch. Shake it all out. Well done, everyone. That was hard work.